Isn't it absurd to think that autoimmunity can actually cause osteoarthritis? You see, most people think of osteoarthritis, a joint degeneration problem, with osteophytes and spurs and pain and disability and stuff like that. They think of osteoarthritis as just a joint problem, and they think about how to balance out the muscles, how to adjust the joints, adjust the nerves, or rebalance the muscles using physiotherapy and rehab. And none of that I just mentioned is wrong, but it is incomplete, because when you look at fixing osteoarthritis, we have to consider fixing the person with the osteoarthritis. And that's where the missing gap in a lot of people's healthcare regime is, because they do not consider how they themselves with the disease can actually heal as well. So when we consider someone who is now riddled with pain and disability because of osteoarthritis, we actually have to, of course, take into consideration all the research that supports using nutrition, using rehab, using chiropractic, using osteopathy, all these things that are good for you, and also the research that deals with the other part of you, which is your relationships. Now, at this juncture, I want to talk to you about the very central tenet of why we do what we do, and it is relationship health. When someone comes to us with a disease like osteoarthritis or pain, that is where we have to understand that that person itself needs a life assessment. And why do I say that? It's because relationships are the very thing that you and I were designed to be here on earth to do well. And that is to have meaningful relationships. And flowing from that, we have wealth, we have health, we have time, we have loved ones, we have success, we have future, we have goals, we have assignments and accomplishments and objectives, and everything else flows from healthy relationships. And healthy relationships with what? Yourself, with others, and with God. And if you understand that, you can now see that the moment relationships break down, okay, then again, not just my words, but science have actually shown that when relationships break down, not only disease happens down the line, but your body starts to undergo a state of chronic stress. And most people would think of stress as fear of the future, fear of finances, fear of work-related matters and stuff like that. Those are actually stressors, but they're not really high-potency stressors. They are actually considered as low-potency stressors. And while those are not harmful short-term, they can be harmful long-term. However, relationship breakdown have been shown in science that it is a high potency stressor. That means you don't have to have a long period of time before this high potency stressor can actually do you harm. The Proverbs in the Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, man being gender neutral, he or she, he will be. Okay? So the more you think about your entire being and your body with this osteoarthritic pain, you're going to understand that how you are in your heart, right, and your mind, you will become in your body. So your mind actually mirrors your body, and vice versa. Your body mirrors what goes on in your mind. And research shows that 87 to 95% of chronic diseases are actually rooted in an unhealthy thought life. So, and there's so much other research that I will show you in my ebook right at the end of this little episode, this little session on this site. But understand this, guys, that your mind mirrors your body and your body mirrors your mind. So when we want to fix the body, we got to understand what the science says about what goes on first in the mind, then affects the body. Okay? So now let me take you through the approach, the thoughts, the traumas, and the toxins. And I've just mentioned everything about thoughts. Then I want to go to the second one, trauma, right? So when you look at relationships and how you and I were designed, any relationship breakdown, typically it's a cause for trauma. That means you either had a moment with yourself where you did something and you felt disappointed and you started blaming yourself and stuff like that. That kind of trauma that brings about bitterness, unforgiveness, anger, a critical mindset, resentment towards yourself, that is the very trauma that creates an unhealthy thought pattern that creates this thing called bitterness and unforgiveness towards yourself. And because you are now because you're now hating yourself, because you're now really critical towards yourself and you're not forgiving of yourself, you actually now develop an unhealthy mindset from this trauma. Perhaps it happened at work. Perhaps your boss did not treat you right. Perhaps your colleague said that they would do something for you and then they didn't, and you got disappointed. And your expectations of him started affecting your own expectations of yourself, and you think that you are not worth anything. Your sense of value, your sense of your self-esteem all starts to go down the drain, and your view of yourself, your identity is now rooted in performance, how you actually perform in front of others. You start to work for the approval of others, and when you don't, you think that you failed, and that's called fear of failure. And all these things are all rooted in this one thing, and that is fear, that is bitterness and unforgiveness towards yourself. And that is the very foundation for why people with osteoarthritis need to consider if they have been bitter and unforgiving towards themselves and seek help from there. Okay, so just looking at thoughts, looking at trauma from a relationship breakdown with yourself, from whatever circumstances that came before that, creating an unhealthy thought pattern of bitterness and unforgiveness towards themselves. Okay, of course, at the end, the third T of this protocol, this 3T framework, is really to assess their nutrition, and that's typically founded on inflammation. When someone has osteoarthritis, the very first thing that typically goes out of whack is inflammation, and we put them on a food as medicine framework, right, where we get them to eat different things that would quench free radicals, that will quench prostaglandin 1 and 3, or prostaglandins, or leukotrienes or histamine. All these things will be part of the protocol when it comes to addressing the toxins part of osteoarthritis. However, the one that I wanted to focus on, and I will end with this, is the thoughts and the trauma component of osteoarthritis. Okay, and that is where the autoimmunity is a huge topic of concern, and that is where most people will find the most freedom and really deliverance in that sense from that problem. Okay, so without getting too much into the science about it, I want to end on this. And if you at the moment, at this juncture of this video, go, that's me. Okay, I have an ebook titled 100% Healing for Any Disease, not just for osteoarthritis, but for all sorts of diseases. It is not going to be disease specific. It's actually going to give you the overarching theme of the 3 T's, the thoughts, traumas, and the toxins, of why disease happens and how people can actually think differently. If that's you and you are going, I want to go deeper with my healing journey, and I want to explore different root causes that other doctors have not mentioned at all, only Dr. Ben has, then that's where the ebook is good for you. And at the end of that ebook, you will have a chance to book an appointment with me that is paid. Or if you're still going, I want to get a little bit more clarity as to how this will go, I don't make a conscious effort to put out the approach out there. I believe that people need to understand the why first. So that's why the content of this membership site, low-cost membership site, free for 7 days, it's available out there. So apart from that paid treatment, paid consultation, you can actually jump on a 3T interest call. That's free for 30 minutes, and that's where you and I jump on a little Zoom call or Google Meet, whatever it is, to actually dive deeper into your specific disease. And I will give you not a full consultation, but really a quick spill going off what we talk about in this video, and help you to understand if my approach, healing your 3 T's, okay, the nutrition, the toxins part, but more importantly, the thoughts and the traumas of osteoarthritis surrounding autoimmunity, can work for you. Okay, so at the end of the day, guys, do not sit on this decision. If you are now made more aware, the intent of this video is accomplished, and I'm so happy. But the next step really is where transformation begins, and that's where you start to take intention to a whole new level. And you now look at the ebook, you read the ebook, and you start going, is this really for me? And then click the link in that ebook, or even in the description box down below, where you can book a call with me, half an hour free, just to find out more. So I hope this blesses you and gives you clarity and understanding as to where you can take your healing next. I hope you're blessed, and really, guys, osteoarthritis is such an easy disease to defeat, and I hope this gives you confidence that you are not alone, and you're heard and you're seen, and I hope to be a partner in your healing journey. Take care.